Okay, namaste everyone. Thank you for joining in this class on Kala Sarpa. We were discussing the 7-1 axis with Rahu in the 7th and Ketu in the 1st house. Okay, so before we begin, let's start with the daily Shanti mantra. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunakatu Sahaviryankara Vavahai Tejasvinadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yeah, really good to see you, Shannon. I'm supposed to give you a call after this class, okay? So just be there for some time after we end.
Sure. Sorry I missed the class.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I actually had to talk to you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we discussed Rahu in the 7th. And now we will be, in the last class, we discussed Rahu in the 7th. And today we'll be looking at Ketu in the 1st. Okay. Now, Ketu in the 1st is, is a bit mysterious because Ketu is ambivalent. Okay. I think there is a problem with the video. Just hold on. What happened here? Okay. All right. So Ketu in the 1st, Ketu is a bit ambivalent. Okay. And there is always this mysterious energy associated with Ketu, right? So the 1st house, it is a reflection of your physique as well. Okay. It is a reflection about yourself. So Ketu in the 1st, it reflects ambivalence about the self. Okay. And because Ketu is, is also detachment. So this detachment may manifest in the form of negligence. Okay. So the native may neglect his or her appearance or diet or self-care. And, the native can go into a situation where he or she is living more for others than for himself or herself. Okay. And because Ketu is the tail of the serpent, so it signifies the tail end of something. Okay. So what it does is it may make the native appear very emaciated or gaunt or haggard or thin or wasted. And even if such a person has a very attractive figure or an attractive face, there could be an air of something tragic or otherworldly about that native. Okay. And because Rahu and Ketu is more about the psychological part, so as a shadow planet, Ketu is amorphous. Okay, we call it the headless one, right? So the headless one implies a lack of ego. Okay, so with Ketu in the 1st, the native may represent a featureless personality. Okay, it could be very difficult for people to put him into a particular personality type. Okay, so the native will be like a blank screen upon which others can project their own expectations. And if Ketu is afflicted, then the native may be considered by others as something of a chameleon. Okay, now Ketu we know has no boundaries. All right, so the native will be easily influenced by people around him or her. Okay, and because, as I said, there is no fixed character or there is no fixed personality type, these natives, they put on different personae to suit the occasion. Okay, and at times, there may be a legitimate question: who am I? Okay, and this is a very existential question that can lead him down various roads. All right, so I've answered that question to Shannon in the class on Tantra, who am I? And it's a very existential question, but it has an answer to it. Okay, it has an answer to it. So this question in India was popularized by Ramana Maharishi, and then by Nisargadatta Maharaja, and finally in the West it was popularized by Muji, right? So who am I is a very existential question, and it can lead people down various roads, right? So for this person having Ketu in the 1st house, it can lead such a native down various roads, like like towards an acceptance of his or her ambivalent nature, or towards embracing spirituality as an antidote for a life which is in flux, or maybe, towards potential mental health issues. So never forget that, right? And most of the, most of the terrorists who blow themselves up, or most of the, serial killers who kill people without any mercy, without any remorse, most of them will have Ketu in the first house, okay, influencing the self, influencing the mental health, right? Now, Ketu is very ambivalent, as I said. So, such a native may be very indecisive and reluctant to declare his or her, personal views, or maybe state his or her intentions, or maybe define his or her ambitions. Okay, so it makes a very, it makes for a personality having a very malleable nature. Okay, and there is a certain lack of agenda. Okay, and his surrender to the notion of ke sara sara, right? Have you heard about that word ke sara sara? Anyone can tell me what is the meaning of ke sara sara? There is this famous Hindi song ke sara sara. Yes, the answer is in that song itself. But does anyone know what is ke sara sara?
What will be will
Yeah,
be.
yeah. What will be? What will be? So the Hindi song it said ke sara sara jo bhi ho so ho. So what will be, right? So there is, these people are non-complaining by nature. Okay, that is the only good thing. I have a cousin with Ketu in the first house, and he does not complain, right? And for people like us, we have lost our sense of complaining after a lot of slaps from our gurus. But anyways, this, for people who have Ketu in the first house, a non-complaining nature comes very naturally. Okay, and there is an absence of desire, and such a person is very submissive to his fate and circumstances. Okay, and such a person is also very detached from ego and body image, and he is oblivious to traditional measures of well-being. Okay, so there is a sort of failure to nourish himself or herself in normal ways, because such a person often neglects his physical or psychological well-being. Okay, and appetites may be very modest, the appetite for food or sex or money or power or even fame. Okay, but then, having said that, this is an appropriate mindset for someone on a spiritual path who is aspiring liberation from mundane desires, right? Because Ketu is the moksha karaka, all right? So, liberation will be on the top of the agenda of such people. Now, Ketu is a daydreamer, okay? Such natives are easily distracted from mundane life and more, inclined to engage in abstract thought, okay? You know, it's a great combination to have for spiritual development, because, they can meditate on various cosmic scenarios, okay? You know, we've all heard about how Archimedes used to get his best ideas while soaking in the bathtub, or while, how Einstein got his best ideas while staring off into space. Okay, so it's very characteristic of people having Ketu in the first house. And these people, they are very prone to fuzzy thinking. They will often favor intuition or leaps of faith, where others prefer logic. And this is the main reason why, why Ketu is regarded as a, as a shadow of Mars. Okay, because Mars is the karaka for logic, and once you go beyond logic, you start trusting your intuition. That means you become Ketu. Okay, now Mercury is not the karaka for logic. Okay, never confuse Mercury to be the karaka of logic. It'll seem, and some people will say that Mercury is the karaka for logic, but no, Mars is the karaka for logic. Okay, and these people, they often can find themselves into situations where friends and associates say that, oh my god, he is spaced out or she is spaced out. It's like being on a spiritual high at all times. Okay, now Ketu is very commitment phobic, because Ketu is the end of desire, desirelessness, and commitment means coming into desire or nourishing desires. Okay, so these natives, they may be difficult to pin down regarding their beliefs and principles, and they can become evasive when when they are pressured for answers or discussions. Okay, and at times they can be disconnected from personal ties and social movements, and they prefer not to make decisions on their own, and they are more likely to surrender control. Okay, so it's like seeing oneself in in the world, but not being a part of it. Okay, and the good thing about this combination where Ketu sits in the first house is that you allow, the divine will to run your life rather than your personal wills or your personal plans. Okay. And these natives, they have serious trouble bonding with others, and loneliness may be a recurring life theme. Okay. Now, if the soul is evolved enough, such a soul will resign himself or herself to his or her essential separateness from, from mundane affairs. Okay. And take refuge in spiritual life. Okay. Which is nothing but union with the divine. Okay. And Ketu always moves in an anti-clockwise, in a clockwise direction. All the planets, they move in the anti-clockwise direction. So from the first house, Ketu is moving towards the 12th house, right? So it's always, it's always surrendering to the divine will. Okay. And just like Rahu reflects, Ketu is the absorber. Okay. And being this absorber, it adds its own spin to what's projected from it. And the native may become an unwitting proxy for something that he or she never sought. Okay. For example, as I say, results will be different for different people. So in one scenario, a person may be lionized, achieving iconic status for some perceived virtue, while another person may be demonized for some perceived vice. Okay. Now the nodes, both Rahu and Ketu, they act as conduits for other energies. And because, as I said, Ketu is particularly receptive, the native is very prone to possession by peculiar ideas or maybe demonic entities, or even, addictions to alcohol and drugs. Okay. And this is a problem because, once you are possessed by something, it's very difficult to come out of its grip. Okay. On the positive side, these people, they may become channels for spiritual communications, getting insights or revelations from divine beings that want to speak through him or her. Okay. So I have said this in my last classes as well. Rahu is the jungle while Ketu is the castle. Okay. So as human beings, or as the journey of our evolution, we have to move towards the jungle, right? Leaving the comfort of the castle. So Ketu is your comfort zone. Okay. Don't demonize Ketu just because Ketu is sitting there and it has blocked something. All right. That is a comfort zone. You have to move towards the jungle. And I often say that, Rahu and Ketu, the Rahu Ketu axis is the, is the problem that you have to solve. Rest of the planets you can solve, but because Rahu and Ketu is psychological, so they are the first planets that you have to overcome. Okay. So what happens is, to compensate for his or her own ambivalence, these natives, they are frequently drawn into the orbit of partners with a charisma enough for two. Rahu represents multiplicity, right? And this creates a union of unequals in which the native, moves in and out of relationships because their enchantment with one partner waxes and wanes just like the moon. That is the reason why Ketu is regarded as the, as the prime enemy of the moon, right? Just when, just like Ketu eclipses the moon, similarly, for the native, the enchantment with a partner will continuously wax and wane. All right. And like in any other house, the influences on Ketu will incline the native in one direction or another. Okay. Just look at any planets that associate with or aspect Ketu and the planets that rule it by sign and nakshatra. Okay. So all those planets will have a decisive say on what Ketu will do in the first house. Okay. Now, Ketu is moksha karaka. And as I said, it indicates a spiritual person who is very modest, who is, who is very self-effacing, who is, who is without any agenda of, self-exaggeration. Okay. On the positive side, I'm saying, these people, they are interested only in realizing God. Okay. And as I said, Ketu is like the shadow of Mars. So the native may burn with some kind of an inner zeal. Okay. Such natives may have fevers, right? Fevers of the imagination and of the body. And that fevers can actually make them inspired or be inspiring for others. Okay. Such people can become firebrands. but this energy has to be channelized properly. Okay, carrying a torch for a movement or a revolution. Okay, religious, for any kind of religious or political movement, these people are the ones to look up to, right? That is the reason I say that most of the terrorists will have Ketu in the first house, because one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter, right? So most of the revolutionaries will have this placement where they are not afraid to burn with a fire-like quality. Okay, so give me a couple of minutes. Let me just go through the Astro data bank, and we will look at some of the famous charts with Ketu in the first and Rahu in the seventh. Just give me a couple of minutes. Okay, so let's look at a few example charts here. Okay. Okay, so Joseph Goebbels, all right. I think most of us know about Goebbels, isn't it? He was the Minister of Propaganda for Adolf Hitler. Okay, and he is very famous for for how he used to whitewash the crimes of Hitler, and it's very amazing how people bought into his story. Okay, and we have something similar running in India nowadays, but anyways, that is not for me to comment, right? So Joseph Goebbels, I think you can see the chart. So he was a German politician and Reich Minister of Propaganda of Nazi Germany from 1933 to 1945. And he was Hitler's most devoted associates. And he had tremendous skills in public speaking, and his virulent anti-Semitism, in which he advocated harsh discrimination, including extermination of Jews in the Holocaust, right? So there is a book called The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, and that's a book by William Shirer. Okay, and he describes Goebbels as a very swarthy, dwarfish young man with a crippled foot, a nimble mind, and a complicated and neurotic personality. Goebbels was born to humble Roman Catholic parents who had hoped he would join the priesthood, an idea that Goebbels seriously considered while in university. And he was a very sickly child with a lung inflammation and a deformed right foot, requiring a special boot that left him with a limp. Now, he was a PhD holder. Okay, he did his PhD from the University of Berlin, and he aspired to be a writer, producing 14 books and a couple of plays before the war brought all that to an end. And after becoming the Minister of Propaganda, he channeled his creative energy into applying commercial art techniques to propaganda posters, utilizing radio as a relatively new technical tool of mass communication, and directing the film industry to glorify Hitler's personality and the success of the German armed forces. Okay. Now, throughout his life, Goebbels was a womanizer. Okay. He was very quick to fall in love, but just as easily bored with a relationship. Okay. And the book mentions, I've read the book mentions that Goebbels' wife was obliged to call upon Hitler more than once to intervene when her husband's affairs threatened to destroy their marriage. Okay, now despite this tension, the couple had 6 children, so they had time for that romance as well. Okay, and tragically, all of them died at the hands of their parents just prior to their own suicides a few days after Hitler supposedly killed himself. Okay, so this is the chart of Goebbels. You look at Ketu in Cancer. So Ketu in a water sign, it means there is some kind of a blocked energy here. Okay, a fiery planet going into a water sign, it means there is some kind of problem with the intuitive abilities. Okay, you can actually end up reading your intuition wrong if you have displacement. Okay, now there is no planet with the nodes. Okay, and there is an empty house among the signs between the nodes. So this is a very potent color, Sarpa, and it is a difficult one, the anoloma type, where all the planets are moving towards Rahu. Okay, so Rahu becomes the starting point for analysis, and since both Mars and Saturn are aspecting Rahu, it is a significant dosha. Okay, now Goebbels was born into Ketu Dasha. Okay, Goebbels was born into Ketu Dasha, and just hold on. Yeah, Meena ji, you have raised your hand.
Sir, आपने ये बोला, you have said that when Ketu is there in the Lagna,
Mhm.
so you are misguided by your intuitions. That was
Not
the thing.
not really, not really. If depends on the sign, ma'am. Okay, so if Ketu
Okay.
is in a fire sign, you'd have very good intuition. Okay, but if
Okay.
Ketu is in a water sign, that means you can be misguided because of the mismatch of energy.
Okay.
So Goebbels was born into Ketu Dasha, as I said, and Saturn entered Dasha. And you look at both the planets, Ketu in air sign, air sign means it gives more, it gives more, what to say, more fuel to the fire, right? So what will happen is you'll be very intuitive, but you will be, once you try to use your intuition, you'll forget it. What was the intuition? It's something similar to what happens when you dream of something and then you cannot remember your dream. Okay, so if you try to follow your intuition, all of a sudden there is a possibility that you might forget about what you got the intuition in the first place. Okay, so yeah, so Saturn and Ketu, look at the chart, both planets are associated with the Kala Sarpa pattern, so there is an early connection. Okay, there is a very early connection. Also tell if Ketu is an earth sign. See, the thing is that Ketu does good in earth signs because earth holds the fire. Okay, earth holds the fire. So if Ketu is in an earth sign, you need someone to train you to use that intuition. Okay, the base is very good. You know that your intuition is not misleading you, but you need someone experienced to guide you on how to use that intuition. Okay, Ketu in fire sign is the best because then even how to use that intuition comes from within you. All right, but if Ketu is an earth sign, you'll need someone to stabilize that intuition that is there, and then you can use it to perfection. You need someone to mold you to use your intuition. Okay, now Ketu is alone in the first house and is not aspected. Okay, it is not aspected. Ketu is an earth sign but sitting with Mars in the 10th house, so there is a lot of anger that you have with you, right? Mars in the 10th house, you have the gift of Bhudevi. Okay, you have the gift of Bhudevi. All right, so Ketu is alone in the first house and is unaspected by any planet. Okay, now look at the dispositor of Ketu. It is a Krishna Paksha moon in the 6th house. Okay, so Bhudevi is the Devi of the earth. Okay, Bhudevi is earth, right? Bhudevi is earth. So that means the blessings of Bhudevi mean you would be doing very good with earth-based things. Okay, maybe you'd do good in the metal industry, or maybe you do good in the petroleum industry or the oil industry. Okay, plus there is another good thing about about Mars in a Kendra. You'll never have any vaastu dosha in your entire life. Okay, if Mars is in 1, 4, 7 or 10, you'll never have any vaastu dosha. Okay, no matter who does it to you, you'll always overcome it, or somehow that vaastu dosha will the effect of vaastu dosha will be resolved. Okay, now moon in the 6th, it is indicative of poor mental health. Okay, and Saturn is in its own nakshatra in the 5th, but it has no affliction with any other planet. Okay, so the intellect is very ponderous and potentially dark. Okay, Saturn, a dry planet in the 5th house, it gives you very dark thoughts. Okay, Rahu gets Digbala in the 7th, as we know, and this Rahu is largely influenced by the aspect of its dispositor Saturn. So there is an interplay between the 5th lord and between the 5th and the 7th house. So it is like a sex on the brain dynamic. Okay, sex is always in the mind. That is the reason he had 6 children, obviously, and he had multiple affairs outside the marriage, right? And look at this condition, which is being further aggravated by the aspect of Mars on Rahu. So Mars is also the fifth lord. So despite his physical impediments, Goebbels was a notorious womanizer. Okay. And if you leave the malefic influences aside, Rahu is also aspected by the ninth lord Jupiter. And since Rahu's seventh house placement reflects relationships with others, including the masses, this is one of the factors that promoted the Ministry of Public Relations and the publishing industry itself. Okay, so Rahu was also involved in a yoga with Jupiter, right? And in the ninth lord, the Jupiter is the ninth lord, so that actually propelled him to that Ministry of Propaganda. Okay, now we know that Kala Sarpa amplifies exaggerated planets, and Goebbels had 3 exaggerated planets. Sun and Venus. You look at Sun and Venus; they are debilitated, right? Both are debilitated, and that is being aggravated by the Kala Sarpa. Okay, and Mars is moderately combust. All right, and since the Sun is the Karaka for the ego, the debilation of the Sun motivates the demonization of others in order for you to feel superior. Okay, similarly, if Venus is debilitated, it can reflect a perceived deficiency in sexual attractiveness, and that is something which is usually compensated by dedicating considerable energy in sexual conquests. Okay, now Mars is the yoga karaka, but Mars, as I said, is slightly combust, so it's a double-edged sword. Okay, and what is Mars by nature? It is a Kshatriya planet whose nature is to control and command others. So an exaggerated Mars can reflect an obsessive desire for power. Okay, and by all means, he was the cleverest of all the Nazis. Okay, but then he was also very unpredictable and very, very abusive. Okay, and despite running the most efficient department in the regime, we know that Hitler, could proliferate because of the regime of the Department of Propaganda. But then he was never a threat to Hitler's power because everyone hated him. Okay, the public hated him, unlike Hitler, right? And many of the pivotal events in Goebbels' life, it occurred in the periods of the nodes, or in the periods of planets linked to the nodes, or in the periods of planets in exaggerated condition. Okay. Now the Dasha of Venus, which is debilitated, it ran from the age of 20. It ran from the age of 2 to 22. Okay, and during this period, Goebbels had to come to terms with his own deformities like chronic respiratory problems, a deformed right foot requiring surgery, and also a prosthetic boot. And during his school years, he was a very religious fellow. Okay, he was a very literally minded Catholic who considered becoming a priest, but after he discovered women, his libido took over. This is something that happens across the religious spectrum. Okay, Sun Dasha at the age of 22 to 28, he completed his education and he shifted his energies from arts to politics. And in Sun Rahu, that is, at the age of 23, he received his PhD. So he did it quite young. Okay, and the following year in Sun Jupiter, he became a journalist for a local newspaper. He wrote a semi-biographical novel and joined the Nazi party. Okay, in Sun Saturn, at the age of 23, he wrote 2 plays and began keeping a diary, a routine that he continued until his last days before committing suicide. Okay, during the Moon Dasha, for 10 years, that means between age 28 to 38, he became a very staunch supporter of Hitler, and he rose in the Nazi party ranks. Okay, during Moon Mars, at the age of 29, he became Gauleiter. Okay, that means a district leader of Berlin. And during Moon Saturn at the age of 32, he was appointed the director of all Nazi propaganda. Okay, and in Moon Ketu at the age of 35, after Hitler took power of Chancellor of Germany, after Hitler took oath as the Chancellor of Germany, Goebbels became the Reich Minister of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda. And this was a post he held until his death. Okay, so all the major affairs of his life happened during the Moon Dasha. And what is the Moon? The Moon is dispositing Ketu. Okay, Ketu is in the house of the Moon. Now look at Mars Dasha. At the age of 38 to 45, he wielded immense influence over his political adversaries as well as over the masses. And he was a very shrewd exploiter of technology. Okay, he pushed domestic manufacturers to produce millions of affordable radio sets for distribution to German homes, and he also obliged employers to install loudspeakers in all workplaces so that when Hitler spoke in public, he addressed the nation. Okay, and Goebbels also placed strict controls on all forms of communication and culture, in newspapers, radio, art, and film, ensuring that Hitler, the Nazis, and the Germany's armed forces were glorified. Okay, and the highlight of the Dasha was the summer of 1936 during Mars Rahu when Berlin hosted the Olympics. Okay, now he faced a lot of success and triumph in Mars Dasha, but then it all began to unravel in Rahu Dasha. Okay, from the age of 45 to the end of Goebbels' life. And as things went from bad to worse on the Russian front, Goebbels advocated a total war for Germany, subordinating all economic activity towards the worsening war effort. And before his Rahu period was over, the Third Reich was destroyed, and Goebbels, he killed his family as well as himself. Okay, so it was a very tragic end because he also killed his children, his 6 children, along with his wife before he committed suicide finally. Okay, all right. So this is Tracy Lords. So, everyone knows about her, right? Tracy Lords. She created quite a controversy. She is an American actress, singer, model, writer, producer, and director. Okay. And during the 1980s, she was one of the most sought after porn stars in the industry. And she achieved notoriety after the FBI discovered that she was underage when she posed nude in Playboy, and she appeared in numerous pornographic films. Okay, and the end result was that there was an order from the court that that required the withdrawal of her videos from the marketplace that cost millions of dollars to the adult film industry, and her case became the biggest scandal to affect the industry. Okay, now if you look at the life of Tracy Lords, she grew up in a very troubled environment. Okay, her father was very alcoholic and abusive, and she was raped at the age of 10 by an older boy and later molested by her mother's drug dealing boyfriend. She had an abortion at the age of 14, and she began working as a nude model at the age of 15. And, by September 1984, she was in the cover of the best-selling issue of the men's magazine, Penthouse. I'm sorry, I read that as Playboy. It is not Playboy, it is Penthouse. Okay. And she was soon given the title of the Princess of Porn. And she was, by making adult films in those days, she was earning almost $1,000 a day. But then 2 years later, someone complained and the FBI discovered her true age, and all her films were summarily, were instantaneously yanked or removed from the market. Okay. So what did this was that it forced her to change careers. Okay. And she trained herself as a method actor and started all over again as a legitimate actress. This time, she even refused to do nude scenes as a way to distance herself from her past. Okay. And after moderate success as an actor or as an actress, she later launched her recording career. Okay. She married twice, divorced once, and she wrote an autobiography underneath it all, which made it onto the New York Times bestseller list. Okay. And after becoming a first-time mother, she resumed her acting career. And in 2017, she directed her first feature film, which was a horror film. I think Shannon would know the name of this. Okay, I've forgotten it. Anyways, look at the chart here. Ketu in Virgo. Okay, Rahu with Saturn. All right. So Saturn is occupying the same sign as Rahu, but lies within the degree of the nodal axis. So this is a partial Kala Sarpa with a Viloma type, with all the planets moving towards Ketu. So this means it's a bit easier. Okay, it's an easier chart to navigate. And since Saturn is conjoining Rahu and is aspecting Ketu, it creates a dosha. Okay. Now Tracy was born into Venus Dasha, Jupiter Antardasha. Venus, you look at Venus, it seems to be ordinary in the 8th house, but it forms a Parivartan Yoga with Mars in the 9th. Okay. So the 8th lord and the 9th lord involved in the Parivartan, it signifies problems with the father. And, because just like the 9th house is the house of Dharma, 8th house is the house of Adharma. Okay, so it often casts a shadow on one's ethics or morals. Okay, Jupiter is also not very well placed, but it forms a Kesari Yoga with Moon in the 12th. Okay, so you look at the Dasha and the Antardasha lords when she was born, they were occupying houses that are traditionally associated with sex. That means the 8th house, which implies prostitution as well, and the 12th house, it implies personal enjoyment. Okay, no one knows. No, it's not widely said that the 8th house implies prostitution, but it does. Okay, it actually does not imply prostitution. Parashara says it implies sex for commercial reasons. Okay, that is prostitution. Okay. Now Rahu is getting Digbala along with Saturn in the 7th house. So both are strong but afflicted. Okay. And this association of Saturn with Rahu creates Raj Yoga because Saturn is a trine lord or trikona lord. Okay. And it is, it is acting as a proxy for its Kendra lord Jupiter. Okay. But then, such a yoga, although it is, it is said to be good, but it involves the 7th house, which is, of course, known as the Maraksthana. Okay. So with two malefics in the 7th, right, the main feature of the Saturn Rahu combination lies in its sexual nature. Okay, Rahu's dispositor is Jupiter, Ketu's dispositor is Mercury. And look at both these dispositors, they are falling under the influence of the 8th Lord Mars. Okay, Jupiter by aspect and Mercury by association. And then the lords of the morality houses. Which are the morality houses? The 4th house and the 9th house. So the 4th house, whose lord is Jupiter, and the 9th house, whose lord is Venus, all are falling under the influence of Mars, Jupiter by aspect and Venus by rulership. Okay, so this cumulative effect of Martian influence on all the benefics reinforces the notions of dosha and of raw sexuality. Okay, now the only exaggerated planet in the chart is the sun. Okay, and as we know that Kala Sarpa magnifies all exaggerations, so it magnifies this exaltation as well. Okay, now the 12th lord is in the 8th house. Okay, and it is stabilized by two major benefics. So it indicates an ability to have leveraged, to have a leveraged kind of sexual experience to achieve something that transcends mere sexual interest. Maybe they tried kundalini sex or something like that, which we don't know. Okay, and many of the important events in Tracy's life occurred in the periods of the nodes or planets linked to the nodes or planets in exaggerated condition. Okay, Sun Dasha ran from the age of 9 to 15, and during Sun Ketu at the age of 14, as I said, she became impregnated and was forced to have an abortion, right? Moon Dasha ran from the age of 15 to 25, and during Moon at the age of 16, she began posing as a nude model, which subsequently resulted in her featured as a Penthouse, magazine cover girl, right? During Moon Mars, at the age of 17, she was doing porn films, and she became an overnight industry sensation, one of the most sought after performers of the era. Okay, in Moon Rahu at the age of 18, the FBI discovered her true age at the time of the shoots, and that they called it as illegal, and they forced distributors to withdraw all of her films from the porn industry outlets. And at the age of 19, during Moon Jupiter, she left porn and she became a legitimate actress by switching careers. Okay, as I said, she made a second career transition, and that happened during Mars Dasha at the age of 25 to 32. And this time she started as a recording artist. Okay, and in Mars Rahu at the age of 26, she released her debut album. Okay, and in Rahu Dasha at the age of, between the age of 32 to 50, she launched a new phase in both her personal and professional life. Okay, she broke out of a 5-year-old marriage, and she remarried in Rahu at the age of 34. Okay, and a year later, at the age of 35, she published her autobiography, Beneath It All, which became a bestseller, as I said. And in Rahu Saturn, at the age of 39, she gave birth to her first child. Okay, so that's it, right? That's it. I took up two charts with incredible credentials. All right, and do you have any questions? If not, we can end the session.
So,
Yeah.
so first of all, thank you so much for the wonderful session. Half of the thing is wounds out of my head because I'm not that pro in astrology, but I'm trying my best to understand.
All right.
But it was wonderful. So I have a request because I've joined late. So obviously I missed out on a lot of session. First
Hmm.
of all, I need to understand about Kaal Sarpa dosa itself nicely. I have doubts on it also. So can you please provide the recordings that you
Yeah,
have?
the recordings are always provided every day. After the class,
Okay.
recordings are always there. You can look at the playlists. Okay, the one of the
I've joined
playlists.
late into the group.
No, that's fine.
So
But the playlists are on YouTube. One playlist is titled as Kala Sarpa Yoga. Maybe
okay.
I'll send you the link to the playlists where all the recordings are there.
That would be helpful, sir. That would be
Yeah.
helpful. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you.
All right then. So thank you so much. And tomorrow's Jyotish Foundation class, it starts from 9 p.m. Okay. Satyam Shivam Sundaram will not start from tomorrow because I am stuck at my Guruji's place. We'll start it from next Sunday. Okay. So that's the information that I wanted to give out. But we'll start for the Jyotish Foundation class from 9 p.m. tomorrow because I want people to be accustomed to the new timings. Okay. And Satyam Shivam Sundaram will start from next Sunday, not from tomorrow Sunday. That means it'll start from the 26th and that'll happen at 7 o'clock. Okay. So thank you so much for joining in. Kindly watch the channel for new videos. Thank you so much. Om Gurave Namaha.